Hi folks, and welcome to the Ace Tanker for the M6A2E1, or the Mutant as people call it. This is a Tier 8 Premium American Heavy, one of many. I believe there are 6 Tier 8 Premium Heavies in the game at the moment, and only 1 Tier 8 Heavy as a regular tank in game. So we've got 6 Premiums and 1 regular tank, but this is one of them. This was the first of them. This is a tank that was a pre-order tank, only available if you pre-ordered the Heavy bundle for World of Tanks back when it was in beta, and Wargaming at the time said it would never ever go on sale again, so get it in pre-order. It's your one and only chance. And then I don't know, about 8, 9, maybe a year ago it went up for sale. I can't remember exactly, but I didn't have the cash at the time. It was basically an impulse buy because there was the outrage over Wargaming putting it on sale was so high. I began to have doubts as to whether or not it would go on sale again, and Wargaming wouldn't make that mistake because the community were up in arms, understandably, over the fact that the tank was up for sale, and those few people who had it from when it was a pre-order were very upset. And as I say, I understand, but because the outcry was so big, you know, even though I didn't have the cash, I made an impulse purchase, but I still regret it. I still regret it because essentially it was very expensive. I just couldn't let the opportunity of picking it up slip by. You know, I don't know if Wargaming will ever put it up for sale again because of the outcry, but regardless, I did manage to pick it up. I finally got around to playing it and end up finally making a video and getting to talk about it. This is a tank I never thought I would be able to talk about on the channel, but now I can. So anyway, I started recording this video much earlier. I was going over the history, and after about 20 minutes I was still talking about history, and I decided, you know what, no one is going to sit there for half an hour before watching gameplay listening to history. So I decided to make a separate video just about the history of this tank, or what led up to this tank being developed. I've released it as a separate video that is just history, no gameplay. Apologies for that, and that way I don't have to discuss the history in this particular video because it's been done already. So essentially, to cut a long story short, this is an M6. The M6 heavy tank program came from the T1 heavy program. It was cancelled at the beginning of World War II because basically the M6 was only armed with a 76mm. It was a very heavy tank, and basically it couldn't do anything that you know, the M4 Sherman couldn't do. I mean, the M4 Sherman could be armed with a 76mm gun, and the M6 was armed with the same guns. So essentially the heavy tank was project was cancelled until much later in the war, when the D-Day happened, the invasion of Normandy. America needed to have a heavy assault tank, so they developed the T-28. That was a tank armed with a 105mm gun, and they based that on the T1 or the M6. So essentially it was a heavy assault tank based on the M6. They revisited the program and then started running into German heavy tanks like the Tiger and the Tiger II, and America didn't have anything in their arsenal that could basically take on Tigers or Tiger IIs. So they looked back at the T-28 and the fact it was armed with a 105mm gun, and the fact it was based on the M6 tank. So they revisited the M6 program, and they basically decided that they were going to take the 105mm from the T-28, they were going to mount it in a turret, and they were going to mount that turret on the discontinued M6 heavy program and basically reopen the program. So essentially only 2 were ever built. There was an order for 15 of these to be built, but only 2 were ever built, and by the end of World War II, essentially the tanks were still undergoing trials. They were performing very well in their trials, but there were only 2. World War II ended, and the 2 tanks ended up being scrapped in the 1950s. So only 2 of these were ever built. But essentially, it was a Pershing turret that was modified, lengthened. The armor was increased, and it was able to mount a 105mm gun. The turret performed so well that basically when the T-29 was designed, they basically looked at the turret from the M6A2E1, and the T-29's turret was based on this particular turret. So, you know, when you hear people say that this is basically an M6 with a T-29 turret, that's not entirely true, because the T-29's turret evolved because of this turret. This one came first. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for the history, and I went into it in a lot more detail, in the video earlier on. So anyway, we are here on, what is this, Himmelsdorf. It's late at night as I'm recording this. I'm top tier in the M6A2E1, and this is a very, very scary tank because you don't run into them very often, and they seem to be impregnable from the front, armor-wise. So let's pop into Tanks GG. So as the very original Tier 8 Premium Heavy for the Americans, how does it stack up against all the premiums that were released since then, including the more recent ones that could be considered slightly OP? Well, it's done okay. It's done okay. There are still some problems with it. First of all, the DPM is absolutely awful. It's got DPM that's pretty much equivalent to the T-34, which is awful DPM, but the T-34 gets alpha damage. So even though it's got the same gun as the T-32, it's got the same gun as the T-32, it's got far worse DPM. It's got a far worse rate of fire. Reload is far slower, and the newer tanks have it well beaten as regards rate of fire and DPM. So the shell velocity pretty much matches most of the tanks up here, but it does get quite a bit of ammunition, and the potential damage seems to be okay. Now the gun handling is very, very weird as well, because even though it's the same gun as the gun on the T-32, it's got slightly better aim time, but slightly worse accuracy, and also the soft gun stats are slightly worse than the T-32 as well. So aim time seems to be okay, but the accuracy is the worst of all the Tier 8 American premiums, the heavies that is. The gun handling worse than most of the other Tier 8 premium heavies, with the exception of the T-34. So not great. It does get 10 degrees of gun depression, which is what you'd expect from an American tank, so that's okay. Its mobility is on the bad side as well. You want to get a 29 km/h top speed, incredibly slow due to the fact the tank was so heavy. The turret weighed so much, the additional armor that was added to the tank weighed so much, but essentially the top speed is very, very slow as a result. The reverse speed is got the worst reverse speed, so mobility wise it's not very good either. It does get the historically accurate 960 horsepower from the engine though, and the ground resistance is amongst the worst. Even though it's slow, it's got bad reverse speed, power to weight ratio is pretty average for a Tier 8 premium heavy for the Americans. Its ground resistance is worse than any of the other tanks, with the exception of the T-34 as well. So it's definitely not as competitive as regards its firepower, gun handling or mobility, but where the M6A2E1 was always good, and it's still excellent, is its armor. So it got an additional 184mm of armor added to the front of the tank, and as a result the frontal armor is 191 in the garage, but because it's sloped it's actually much more effective. So the frontal hull armor is the best hull armor of any of the American tanks, and the turret armor looks very, very poor here compared to some of the other tanks. Only the Super Patton or the Patriot is worse turret armor, but we know that turret armor is pretty good from the garage. So the turret armor doesn't look anything amazing. The other tanks have it beaten, but it still looks very, very good. Side of the hull seems pretty poor, and the rear of the hull seems fairly average. The rear of the turret seems to be very, very good on the M6A2E1 though, so turret armor seems to be a little bit hit and miss, but definitely the hull armor is a positive. It gets 380 meters of view range, which is poor, so that makes this quite a poor, it doesn't spot very many tanks for itself, even as a top tier. It matches the view range on the Chrysler, the T-34, but T-32 and the Super Patton have it well beaten, and that's pretty much it. So it seems to be reasonably well armored, and the gun handling and gun are rather disappointing. The mobility looks disappointing, and maybe it suffered from power creep a little bit. But let's take a look at the 3D model, because the 3D model tells a completely different story. What we've got here is an incredibly well armored tank from the front. The effective armor, because of that sloping, takes it up to 233 millimeters. It differs from here and there, but essentially you're going to need a very, very big gun to go through the front of this tank, and don't even bother going for the lower glacis. Look at this. The lower glacis can get up to 1400 millimeters needed to go through it. Ignore the lower glacis. So tanks are going to have major problems going through this. Now you do have a weaker turret ring, so if you do get a shot at the turret ring, try and hit it flat on. You can maybe penetrate. It's a 50-50 chance here. So the turret ring could be considered a slight weak spot, but you know, it's rounded, depends on where you hit it, so I wouldn't aim at that as a priority. The front of the turret seems to be very, very good because it's all gun mantlet, and you can see the gun mantlet is rounded, and the effective armor gets up to incredible values once again. So unless you can hit it exactly flat on with a very, very big gun, you're going to be bouncing off this gun mantlet, and the turret armor around the gun mantlet, it's not amazing. Once again, tier 10s might be able to pen it, but you know, in order to pen it, they've got to hit very, very accurately and avoid this gun mantlet. So front of the turret, incredibly well armored, especially against similar to lower tier tanks. And the side of the turret, not amazing, but because it's well sloped, well angled, you've got to hit it at a you need to get very, very lucky in order to pen the side of the turret if you're shooting at it, you know, from the front. So if it does turn its turret, you know, you've got far more chance of getting a shot into the side of the turret. But when it's facing you forward or frontally, you know, there is a good chance you can bounce. There are areas where you might be able to pen with a big gun, but don't count on it. There's a very, very good chance of bouncing. So incredibly good frontal armor so far. This turret roof seems green. It seems weak, but not exactly. What you can see here is the armor is 41 millimeters, but it's extremely well angled, and as a result, that 41 millimeters means it can't be overmatched by Russian 122 millimeter guns. So you know, the turret roof is very, very well armored as well. Even though the effective armor is only 80, at this angle you're going to be bouncing with anything other than a 155 millimeter gun. However, don't despair. The armor may look amazing, but this tank does have a couple of very, very obvious weak spots. I've already pointed out that maybe if you're in a similar tier 8, you might be able to pen the turret ring, but it's got a weak cupola. The cupola is only about 109, maybe depending on where you hit it, a little bit higher, but the cupola definitely is a weak spot, so you're going to be going for that. Now, it is a small target, and you're probably better off going for this. This is a weak spot, and I think a lot of people panic when they see the front of the M6A2E1. They don't know where to shoot it, but if you do come across one of these rare beasts on the battlefield, you can see the viewport here. Well, right behind the viewport, there is a strip of very, very weak armor that's only about 40 millimeters thick. So what you do is when one of these tanks are facing you, you can see that there is a depression here, and that depression leads you right to this viewport, and right behind this viewport is only 60 millimeters of effective armor. So, you know, even if you're 2 or 3 tiers or 2 tiers lower, you're going to be able to pen this with no problems. If you've got a big gun that's firing HE, you can pen and get a penetrating hit here with no problems. It's quite small, it's below the cupola, it's on the same side as the cupola, but this is a very, very big weak spot that not very many people seem to know about when I'm driving this tank. So shoot here if you can't shoot anywhere else. Just, you know, aim at the viewport. You're going to be hitting the thin armor behind it, and there you go. Biggest weak spot in the front of this tank. Even the lowest tier are going to be able to pen you here when you're facing it frontally. And like most American tanks, if you're having problems penning this thing frontally, if you can't hit the weak spots, try to get to its side. It's only got 66 millimeters on the side of the tank. It's only got 89 millimeters on the side of the turret. Tracks are spaced armor. It takes you up to about 91 millimeters of armor, but still, you should be able to pen that without too many problems. And if you do get to the rear of the tank, just remember, don't shoot the back of the turret. Back of the turret, 208 millimeters. You're far better off going for the rear of the tank at 57 millimeters, or even the engine deck that's only 25 millimeters thick with sloping basically effective up to around 38 to 40 millimeters of armor on the engine deck. It is slightly sloped, but you can see it's an easy target. So if you want to get one of these tanks off the battlefield and you basically can't hit its weak spots, then do your best to get to its side, do your best to get to its rear. This is not a very fast tank. Its reverse speed is horrible. It's very easy to flank these tanks, so try and do that, and they're very easy to take out. But despite the armor, probably the biggest strength this tank has is the fact that no one knows how to take them out. They face them so rarely on the battlefield. We are here on Himmelsdorf, and I'm going hill because I'm top tier heavy. So defender on the enemy team, wondering where he's going. There's 2 RT in play. You can see that traveling uphill, the tank is not particularly fast. We do have gun depression, but it's definitely not a fast mobile heavy. It'll get you where you need to go, but it's not going to do it quickly. So 1500 hit points, a lot of armor. You know, this tank can be fun, but it's only fun if you're facing tanks who don't know what they're doing. What it looks like is it doesn't seem as if there are very many. Oh, yeah, as I say, gun handling, not amazing. Snapshot didn't really work there. I'm going hull down, but yeah, it doesn't seem to be very many tier 8s have come up here, so we could just go up here, move, and I just got shot by my own IS-2 in the back of the turret. Oh, M6, there's the same tank, just different turret, different gun, different frontal armor. Go for a track shot in the IS, could have aimed that one a little bit better, but you can see the rate of fire is not amazing. We're sitting here, I'm twiddling my thumbs, waiting for the tank to reload. And he tracks me. Okay, so he penned me. I was angled badly, he managed to get a shot in. I forgot the tracks on this, they extend quite a bit out from the hull, long way in front of the turret, but basically we take him out for kill number 1. We've done 1200 damage, and we're just going to advance now because there's nothing on the hill other than a Skoda T25, and I'm sure my team have more than enough to take him out. So I've taken a little bit of damage because I'm careless and basically wasn't used to driving the tank. This is only my 4th game in the tank so far, maybe my 3rd, I'm not sure. But we're just going to advance, nothing waiting for us down here, and again, you know, you're not going to get anywhere quickly. Even going downhill, we're struggling to get above 35 kilometers an hour. But we're going to go down, and most of the damage that's been done to me has been done to me by my own IS-2 so far. So fire, okay, he's fired, and now we can move out. You can see the aim time, nothing special. That was probably, I could have let it aim in fully. That was probably a bad shot by me. I could have let the gun aim in more fully, but we're going to advance. And again, as I say, not a lot of people know how to take these tanks out, and as long as you keep your front to enemy tanks, you can basically bully pretty much anyone who isn't a tier 9 or tier 10. So nice snapshot, we're able to put a shot into the T-34-85. Now there are a couple of dangerous TDs down here. There's a Scorpion G, an Su-152, a Stoba Immel. So I don't really want to go down and basically expose my tank, but in the meantime I'm kind of okay. The enemy team are starting to die off rather quickly. The score is 4-4. Okay, T-34-85, he's not a threat, I'm wasting my time here. I could have been a little bit more aggressive, but the Scorpion G is one of those tanks that can go through the front of my tank like butter. So that's the guy I'm a little bit worried about. Defender is down near our cap, M6 is down near our cap. So I need to move forward, need to start doing something, and once again, I don't know why I'm so preoccupied with this T-34-85. He's not a threat, that Scorpion G is. But we finally take him out, and now maybe I could start playing the game. So, okay, maybe a shot in the A44, but it's more important we'll go down here. Scorpion G is already tearing our team apart. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to go hull down, and put a shot into the Scorpion G. So hull down, and he's bouncing, because I don't know if he was going for my cupola there, but want to try and sneak a shot. You can see the aim time. Aim time is just not good enough, and the Su-152 is able to put an HE shell into my tracks. As I say, your tracks extend a long way off the front of this tank, so I kind of want to shoot the Scorpion, but anyway, we're going to move back. We're going to try an angle. He bounces on my... Oh, that's a T-34-85M that bounces. So Scorpion is still there. And he bounces, and that's what this gun does. And unfortunately, another HE shell into my tracks. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but annoying all the same. Okay, tracks are up. Going to advance, going to focus on the Scorpion G, but yeah, there's not a lot of skill in this game. I'm just moving forward, miss my track shot in the Scorpion G. He puts a big premium shell into me because he's frustrated. But our reload is not amazing. And we can finish off the Scorpion, thankfully, before he's able to put another shot into me. So anyway, I'm being perma-tracked by the T-34-85M around the corner. Yes, my repair kit's still on cooldown. Enemy team were capping. Oh, T-37. Are you coming around the corner? Oh, he is. And this guy is absolutely no threat to me. Yeah, he's going for my lower glacis and he's bouncing, and I don't know why he's sitting there. I really don't know why he's sitting there. But it's obvious this guy has never seen a M4 or M6A2E1 before, otherwise he wouldn't sit there and shoot. So T-34-85M, he's still focused on me. I'm gonna try and turn... Oh no, he's running. Okay, so he's running. We're gonna chase down the T-34-85M, and then a big hit by enemy RT. Oh dear, that was annoying. Alright, big hit by enemy RT. Gunner back in action, only on 14 hit points. And yep, as I say, sometimes you have these games that are just not very interesting, or not very good, or not a lot of skill on display. But anyway, because the M44 has hit me, I know where he is. On the minimap he was last spotted in A2, but I know he's in K1, so I'm going to use my amazing 29 kilometers an hour top speed to try and move down. My view range is not the best, but we're going to go try and get some revenge on this arty. I'm on 5 kills. I'm wondering, am I going to pick up a Top Gun? There's an M6 that's gone up the hill. Probably the same M6 from beginning, but okay, M44, aim, and thankfully someone puts a shot into him but doesn't kill him, so we pick up 6 kills. The M6 goes down in the meantime, but not an amazing game, but you got to see the armor, you got to see the weak points. I mean, when tanks can get shots into your side, they're going to pen, they're going to cause a lot of damage. I got permatracked, and you can see that the front of the tank extends a huge way out from the turret, so that was one thing I wasn't aware of. When you're trying to go around corners, in order to get your gun on target, you're exposing a big part of your tank, so that's something I'm going to have to bear in mind for future. But took a few shots into the tracks, got damaged through the tracks a few times trying to go around corners, but other than that, it was a reasonably decent game, and first ace in the M6A2E1, even though I didn't play particularly well. But sometimes you have games like that, and the ace probably was down to basically the tank more than the driver, but we picked up a steel wall. You're going to pick up a lot of steel walls in the M6A2E1, picked up high caliber, picked up Top Gun. Nothing amazing, but you pretty much got to see what the tank was good at, what the tank was bad at. The mobility, not great. The rate of fire, not great. The DPM, not great. And when you're not careful driving around corners, tanks can get shots into your side, and that is a weak point on the tank, so I didn't drive it particularly well, but I'm still learning. I'm still learning the tank. As I said, I think that was my 3rd or 4th game in the tank, so it didn't take very much. I don't think very many people drive this tank, but it didn't take much to ace. 1278, 3,812 damage, 6 kills, and it was all down to the armor. So we took 14 hits, we managed to bounce 10. We got penned 4 times, but a couple of those were HE shells. We spotted 5, damaged 6, destroyed 6, 48 assistance damage, not very much. We ended up earning 100,000 credits for that particular game. It was the first win of the day, or first game of the day, I can't remember, which left me on just around 6,000 XP with a premium account. So yeah, the M6A2E1, a tank I never ever thought I would have in my garage, a tank I would never thought I would be able to cover on the channel unless someone were to send me in a replay. But the Mutant, or the M6 with the 105mm gun, it's done, it's dusted. It's another ace to my collection, and if any of you guys are people who originally bought the pre-order package and got this tank legitimately and are upset over the fact that a scrub like me has the tank now, I do apologize. As I say, the opportunity to pick up a rare tank came up, you know, for the first time in like 4 or 5 years. I had to do it, and as much as I disagree with Wargaming putting the tank back on sale, I'm just happy to actually own one and be able to talk about one on the channel. So as I say, if you're a pre-order, I do apologize, but other than that, I mean, Christmas, I don't know, Wargaming, they're into the money. Maybe they're going to put it on sale again during this advent calendar, I don't know, but just in case they do, I decided to do a video on it now and play the tank now. But anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching. The history was covered on a video earlier on. I hope you don't mind, and I'll see you again.